Okay, now Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the AI India Impact Summit has spoken about developing AI with a human face. He's used an acronym, as Mr. Modi often does, MANAV, which effectively means humanity. But what is this MANAV vision really all about? Will it really lead to inclusive AI for public good, as the Prime Minister hopes it will? That's the question I want to pose to my next guest. Joining me now, Dr. Ajay Sood is Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Appreciate your joining us there, Dr. Sood. As this AI summit concludes, the Prime Minister launched what he calls MANAV, or India's human vision for artificial intelligence. Can you, from your vantage point, break down for us what does MANAV really mean for the lay public? What do you mean by giving a human angle to AI, sir?
Thank you, Rajdeep ji, for having me on your show. Actually, Manav sums up what the aspirations are for this AI technology for our people. So, if you look at M in the Manav, stands that AI has to be moral and ethical. It means the trust has to be there in AI. Then A means it should be accountable governance. So we should know what we are using. So it should be accountable, it should be answerable, how it is giving a specific answer. N is very important. That's the national sovereignty, which means whatever we do has to have this national sovereignty in view, which means the data, whatever is used to train and so on, should take care of the national sovereignty. Another A is accessibility, how it is accessible across the society sectors, not only to privileged few. And the V is for valid and legitimate system. So all this, if you look at, it only tells how do we make AI safe and trusted AI, and also at the same time making sure that the innovation is encouraged in India, which does not really get killed by the over regulation.
You know, you know, Dr. Sood, these are all very fine words, if I may be allowed to say so. But can I push you particularly on getting an accessible, inclusive system that Manav speaks about? Because at this AI summit, we heard the likes of Sundar Pichai of Google express his worry and concern about an AI divide between the haves and the have-nots, especially in an unequal society like us. There's a fear that AI could lead to large-scale job losses. How do you make a system truly inclusive then, when there are these legitimate fears that there could be a divide between those who have complete access to AI and those who don't? How do you turn Manav into a practical reality and not just fine words?
There are two points I will like to mention. The first is accessibility of AI for public good. And that when we say public good, it has to really serve our people. So when AI becomes available, for example, in agriculture or in education or in healthcare to a large number, that will be inclusive. It is not only just there for the sake of it. So the deployment and diffusion of AI is the key in the next 1 or 2 years. You would have noticed that lot of talk on the development which is happening, but the deployment gap between development and deployment is there, and this is where India needs to make sure that it does a great job. So this is what I mean, that it should be available to all.
So the question, of course, sir, but I come back to it. Are the fears legitimate of those who are skeptical and say, forget about public good in the initial period? Certainly, AI is going to lead to large-scale job fears. Are those job losses? Are those fears legitimate? And will they first have to be overcome before we can take any benefit from an AI-enabled economy, Dr. Sood?
So the fear which you are talking, they are not uncommon when a new technology enters our lives. That is the case when internet happened, computers happened, even the earlier case, steam engines and so on. So the point is that we need to address them. But what we came across in many presentations in this summit, as well as outside, that lot many jobs will be created because of AI. So you have to take some, and this is what needs to be ensured.
Sir, because you said, sir, if you keep saying, and the Prime Minister said this, AI to serve public good is the main goal. But how do you do that without addressing risks like bias in data sets or over-reliance on foreign models while still fostering innovation and the idea of sovereign AI development centered on India-centric model data? Are we eventually going to be dependent on foreign models? And if so, how do we talk on sovereignty?
No, absolutely not. That is where there is a lot of focus on developing models which are trained on India data, India's heritage, India's languages, India's culture. So this is where you saw in the summit, two models along with others were released, one by the Sarvam AI and one by Bharat Gen. They are fully trained on India data. So the effort is not to say that we will not use any foreign model, but to make sure that when we use it, there are guardrails. And this is the thing, with time, the India sovereign models will really play a big role rather than just depending on the foreign models.
So you're speaking of India. So you're speaking of India AI models like Sarvam, but you personally have focused a lot on providing a techno-legal framework to ensure safeguards are created so that AI serves the public good. Can you give me an example of how this techno-legal framework is actually going to ensure that indigenous AI is going to serve the public good?
So now let's see, it's a very good question. Now, what will happen, Rajdeep ji? The the local emphasis is to use the local data, personal and non-personal data. The internet data, whatever is in public domain, has all been used up by the big language models. Now the emphasis will be really on the personal data and non-personal data. That will be the focus. Now, how do you use personal data without compromising the dignity, without compromising the privacy, and using the DPDP laws? This is where the techno-legal mechanism will enable this possibility without really impeding the flow. See, if you make too strict a law and you say that you cannot use this data, then actually this data will just lie in a cupboard. Nothing will happen, or in a computer. So this techno-legal framework enables that. One example, which is known to all our viewers, is the DPI. When you make a transaction in the UPI, actually there's a lot of it happening behind the scene, which means there is a confidential handshake between the banks and the user and the vendor which is using which is taking this. All this is happening behind the scene using technology. So this is what the techno-legal framework enabled. Huge rollout of DPI, which also connects to Aadhaar layer, which is the identification layer. Now, all that will not happen if you do not build this privacy preservation and the trust in the technical instruments. And DPI is one example where it worked. And the similar thing, not the same thing, I'm very careful, has to be done for AI.
So in a sense, in a sense, what you're saying, that you're hopeful that much like the digital public infrastructure or DPI, which had a lot of skeptics initially and then has taken off on scale, you hope that artificial intelligence will take off on scale, will be a public good, providing services in areas like agriculture, healthcare, education, and therefore it will not be a disruptor that will cause the kind of chaos, particularly in India's job market. That's your hope. Am I right?
I'm absolutely sure, as sure as one can be in this evolving technology, because this technology is really evolving at a scale we had not
Okay.
seen before. So I'm very sure, and DPI 1.0 will give
Right.
rise to DPI 2.0, where the data and intelligence will come together. So this marriage of data and intelligence
Okay.
will be India's contribution to the global scene.
Okay, Dr. Ajay Sood, thank you very much for joining us, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, for giving us your perspective and where you believe this summit has taken us at the moment.